everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are continuing the conversation for our current exhibition, Thoughts and Prayers, Another Round of Vacant Stares, with our artist interview series. Today we are talking to Stacey AS Pritchard. Hello, Stacey.
Hello.
Stacey is a lifelong artist working in New Jersey. She has never liked to limit her expression to a single medium and shifts between drawing, painting, sculpture, and printmaking. She has worked exclusively as an artist for 10 years. She creates sculpture, painting, prints, drawings, photographs, and teaches and works with various groups to bring creative and hands-on projects to local children and communities. She has a bachelor degree in fine arts from Ringling School of Art and Design, an associate's degree from Brevard Community College, and a 16-year side career in corporate training that she has since left behind. Much of her current work focuses on the history and forms of violence and its impact on our world. So, Stacey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I apologize for the dogs barking there. It's a Monday, so it's usually a studio day for me, and that's where I'm at.
Nice, and I see a lot of work behind you. So Stacey has two pieces in this exhibition. One of them is titled Maths. So Stacey has two pieces in the exhibition currently titled Maths and Bullet Construction, and they are mixed media pieces made with ceramic, wood, and paper and drawing as well.
And paint, yes.
Yes, and I'd like to do a screen share with those pieces so that we could take a closer look. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
So this is Bullet Construction. Stacey, would you like to tell us about this piece?
This is actually the first piece that I completed in the series as far as taking it to its full completion and creating a sculpture from it. So the series started last August when I started creating these bullet forms in some poured molds so that I could mass produce them. This one in particular, I was really happy once I finally got the pieces through the firing process, and I created in the background of this one a connection of circles that were inspired by like a child's spirograph, and used that form to place the bullets. And all the bullets are red, white, and blue. And I framed it with these really nice pieces of ipe wood that I have from something random. I'm not sure what, but I'm an artist, so you know, we collect things. And to me, it spoke about this foundational level of violence and connection that we have with the gun in particular in American culture. And how, you know, it's that worship of cowboys and Indians and the founding of our country through revolution, and all of these things celebrate the idea of power through weaponry. And I found the bullet form specifically a poignant American symbol of that, with our particular worship of it.
And you know what I really find very powerful about this piece is you've made the bullets appear so delicate and fragile.
Yeah.
And
they're very individual. Even they're like mass produced. No two of them are the same.
So can you talk more on that and the individuality of the bullets and where that came about in your process?
Certainly. Let me go to my currently impromptu ceramic studio, which is my enclosed front porch. So the process for creating the bullets is done through molds. such as these.
Nice.
And so what you do is you take the ceramic material and you create what is called a slurry or a slip. And so it's very thin and watered down, almost to like a pancake consistency. And you take your dried out plaster molds, you use those to create new things. And you can do it very carefully. Sorry, it's a little loud out here. You can do that very carefully, but I'm not very careful about things. And so the result is that when I pull them from the molds, I get various different forms.
Mm.
And so they become somewhat individual.
So in a way,
just in that process.
So in a way, it's intentional with your own intentionality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to mass produce them, but I want to kind of, there's that Andy Warhol thing. They aren't quite the same.
Yeah.
You know, and they start to begin to transform their meaning in that production. And the reforming of them and reconstruction of them once they're finished into constructions, which this is the first one of.
And then we have another piece that I'm going to share the screen for. Yeah, let's talk about this piece.
This piece was specifically the arrangement of it. I was specifically thinking about a crowd of kids at recess.
Oh, wow.
And so this one specifically for me speaks about the risk that they're under, you know, with our culture.
Is there any significance with the bullet that's on the frame?
I wanted to group them. I wanted to think about how kids kind of congregate, and, you know, some of them are kind of by themselves. Some of them are in little cliques and things. So just about different vantage points, basically. But I did particularly choose a bullet that had a lot of black showing in that area. I wanted that contrast to stand out from the others.
Yeah, and you know, with this entire series, which we'll have the opportunity to take a look at in your studio, again, the placement, I feel like the placement that you've put each bullet in each of these series is so very, I know you say you're very unintentional with the way you work, but I feel like the placement of the bullets was very intentional.
Well, yes. I mean, when it comes to constructing them, once I have them all, the placement becomes very intentional. Most of the pieces behind me here, the smaller pieces, are all part of a larger grouping that I'm calling 24/7. So each one is in a dial of 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
What I want to kind of get at with some of these is kind of the ongoing and persistent trauma of it. And that persistence of the violence, and so many different forms, from suicide to Black Lives Matter to gang violence, you know, to war in our society. But for me, the Bullet series in particular is a little more about American violence. Our brand.
There's nothing more American than the violence of guns, really.
Yeah.
I feel like we are on constant 24-hour attack, maybe not physically, but just by what we are seeing and hearing on the day-to-day. And a lot of times, I was speaking on this with a previous interview. I feel as though personally I am programmed, my brain has been programmed to really react to school shootings and the mass shootings. And I really need to work on reprogramming myself to also think more broadly about general gun violence and violence, related to suicide deaths too, and domestic violence. But it's just one of those things, and it could be, from the gun, the news cycle. That's what they sensationalize, is like the larger mass killings, as opposed to the day-to-day violence that we don't necessarily see so much as.
Yeah, and we dismiss it a little easier. In some ways, it becomes a little more normalized because it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
It's someone else's family. It's not a wider, larger family. A lot of times that gets affected by that. So
Yeah.
one of the other aspects to the series is, as I've been creating them, I put them in different arrangements and take photographs of them. Those I only have a stack of photographs of, but can be found out on my Instagram feed. Yeah.
And actually, I have your website up. There are some photographs that I would
yes.
like to share, that hopefully my screen share works more easily this time.
Yeah, it is also on my website. Thank you. Duh.
Let's see if I can bring up your website. Here we are.
Yay for husbands that work in technology.
So these are part of the ongoing series, Bullet series.
Yeah, those are the day and night kind of. They're most of them are done in some type of duality with each other.
What's interesting about the ones that you place in the circular patterns is it reminds me of typical bullseye.
Yes.
Was that intentional?
Originally, yes. The first construction that I was going to do, I have to admit, I was going to use probably 4 times the number of bullets in it. My plan was to saturate the circle with it, but the more that I sat there and played with the pieces, so yes, creating them might be unintentional, but putting them together becomes intentional. The more I wanted it more scattered, but this photo right there, that was started the beginning of me playing with that bullet construction. So it was originally intended to be much more dense. And a target, a John-esque target was my intention, but it came into something else.
I really enjoy these photographs, and I feel like they could be you could turn just the bullets into installation pieces in a space. Just,
Yes, if I created enough of them, yes.
Well, get to it.
Oh, gotta work on that. Gotta work on it. There are, as you saw, more in production. I'm not sure that I found the right form for the photographs yet. Right now, I have them just a regular 8x10 size, but I'm not sure that's the correct final form for them. It's not a typical medium for me. Even though I like to explore a lot of things, it's not one that I'm as well versed in. But constructing the photographs have been very a very visceral, immediate way to react with a sculptural object that takes a lot of time to produce.
Mm. I love the photographs. I would love to see these really large in scale too. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like especially, oh, where's,
Well, and they're all actually specifically related to some kind of news event or something around the time that they were created. I started them in early August last year, after some of the shootings in El Paso.
And what would you say? So they're in reaction to what you've is it a meditative practice for you to create this series in response to that, or is it you really want to connect more with the, you know, bringing this social issue to light, or
both? You know, I think the photographs themselves become a kind of therapeutic, kind of immediate reaction to events. For example, that blue one that you're just passing, that was specifically to 6 different police officers being shot in Philadelphia. You know, so each one has a very specific aspect to look at. If you go the one with the American flag.
Oh, that's further down.
Yeah, that one is about a veteran suicide. And the statistics came out around that time for the next year about the pervasiveness of veteran suicide. So, you know, I think that you're correct. Sometimes when we think of gun violence, we think of children, we think of gangs. We don't always think of domestic violence. We don't always think of suicide, and or even accidental shootings that happen. You know, I was raised mostly in the South, and I have lots of friends that hunt, you know, but they have a great respect for their ownership. They're very careful with how they handle a weapon. They make sure that it's not accessible to anyone but themselves. You know, so there's a way to be responsible if you do have that practical use.
And you know, I feel like that's a conversation that is important to have too. I know for me, and you know, putting on this exhibition, I'm coming from, you know, my own opinions and perspectives on guns and gun violence. And one of the hardest things I've been facing as a curator is not necessarily pushing those viewpoints into the exhibition and allowing there to be conversation of not just, oh, guns are bad, guns are wrong, but how can we come to the middle and have a conversation about how we can be more responsible with guns, and not just be like it's one extreme or the other. We can come and compromise. Because
there is no hunting application for an AR-15 outside of humans. Period.
Yeah.
It's a lousy hunting weapon. You know, sure, there are certain rifles that are okay to hunt with, but an AR-15 or something of that nature, it's not a hunting weapon. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And so if you aren't hunting people and you aren't military, you don't need one.
Exactly. You know, so I really, I want to talk to you about those photographs some more, because I'm in love with them.
Sure.
And just looking at them, I want to bring back up the one, it was, first of all, I think it should be like life-sized.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it was this one here. Like just, but.
Oh, that's just a pile of them grapes.
I know, right? But like, just like being enveloped by this large, massive construction of bullets, like you said, this mass production. And and you talking about the process of making it and making these photographs and making the ceramic pieces, like it all makes me think of like this performative act or action that you're doing throughout the process between one step to the other, that I feel like I'm sure there's a way you could translate that if you.
Some might say it's a little bit of the messages in the medium.
Yeah.
I think one of my intentions in using clay for the object is to humanize it. We have a visceral kind of connection to clay that we don't with metal. You know, there is something in our psyche that relates our body to the earth, no matter what, you know, you look around it, it's just a common thing. And so to me, the clay is body. And so we're making bodies, and we're re-brainwashing ourselves into believing we need this violence in our world.
And you know, that's interesting you said that, because I was just going to, you know, reiterate the fact that these are so delicate and so fragile, and you know, bullets are meant to destroy, and they're meant to be this indestructible force that, you know, breaks the delicate things around them. And you really just re-encapsulated that by saying that these are the bodies that are being destroyed.
Well, yeah, and they're bodies that are being created, their minds that are being influenced, you know, they're all those things, you know, our belief in our use of them as protection, you know, how deep that is as Americans, and all of those things. The surprising thing is they're only really delicate until they're fired. And then, even though they are ceramic, once they are fired, because of the form is a dome or a partial arc, the physics of the bullet itself take over, and they're actually pretty strong for ceramic objects. So it's kind of a interesting play on it. For example, this one is only fired once, so it's been bisque fired. It is awaiting color. So I've got a whole new batch to color, and I'll just go ahead and drop this one. And all that chipped was the very, very tip of it. So what's amazing is that kind of the form, that tube-like form of the bullet is just really structurally pretty sound. So in the end, they become pretty strong.
And what type of clay are you using?
It's a medium fire porcelain. I am firing at the Creative Artisan Society when available at the time in Deal. So shout out to them.
And is porcelain typically one of the more difficult clays to work with?
A lot of artists don't like it. It's a lot of people will tell you it's like working with cream cheese, because it doesn't have as heavy a body as other clays. But what it does have is a really, really wonderful, even when it's not extremely thin, the white in it is such a great chalky white. It's like a really bright white underpainting to work with. And so that's one of the reasons I really, really love it as a clay body.
Mm. And I also have to ask, how are you adhering them to the wood panels in the back?
Oh, epoxy 500.
Oh, I hope you're in a well-ventilated area when you're doing that.
Yes, yes, lots of epoxy on them. The bullets themselves are pretty light, so it doesn't take a whole lot. And I do tend to, after 2 days of them sitting upright, I will put them on the wall and kind of bang on the wall around them and shake them around to kind of make sure. And then after another day or two, I'll kind of try to move the tips of them just to make sure that, are you secure?
So, Stacey, this isn't your only series that you work on that explores violence and the impacts that has. I see another painting behind you that is recently new that you've been exploring as well.
This is a sea mine series, and I decided to use. It's interesting. I love taking objects that we kind of have ideas about and things like that, and using them in repetitive natures as metaphors themselves. And so I've had this image of a sea mine floating around my studio for a while as a weapon of war. And wondering when I was going to use it. I actually was originally it was going to be used with a print of this girl.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and so I did a print of her, and she was going to be holding the sea mine, and it just never came together that way, and was floating around my studio, and then COVID happened. And it occurs to me that it's a specific kind of violence, and it's kind of this hidden and scary thing, and we don't see it, and yet it's there. And I started using it as a way to kind of just explore the form and color and where that's going.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because I was going to ask if this was also had a hidden relationship to coronavirus, because I know you made this piece over the summer at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are 12 pieces now. They're all different sizes. This is one of the larger ones. The latest one is right here. It's a little harder to see.
Oh, wow. I love that one.
That's a favorite of most people. But yes, there are about 11 in that series. And so, yeah, that is a second series about violence. But that one's really more about COVID. But, yeah.
But that's another important thing that I think we really need to, as a whole, really think about, is this idea of hidden violence that we don't necessarily see at the forefront. Because a lot of times it's that hidden violence that drives the outward violence that you see, that people generate towards one another.
Well, it's true. I've been looking, one of the things in looking at violence and a history of violence, which I kind of started doing when I was working on the series a few years ago about Syria, and started digging into history of war in that area. And boy, what an onion that's peeling back. And a glance at mankind. What I found is that you know, a lot of it goes back to fear and need. And, you know, it sounds so hippy dippy, but things as simple as food.
Mm-hmm.
It could go so far.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
if we invested half of what we invest in hurting and punishing each other and feeding and housing each other.
And it all goes back to that idea of mass production and capitalism and this idea of, I guess, those in power don't necessarily, if it's not benefiting them, why should they bother, right?
Well, I think there's an element of that. I think it's also an element of being very difficult to change what you can't see.
Yeah, that's
Or
true.
what you don't want to see. A lot of people don't want to change because they don't want to see that the way that we've built our world depends on that conflict.
Yeah, and it's hard to, it is hard to see, and it's hard to acknowledge what you've seen if you've been taught a particular way your entire life, and then all of a sudden you're 20 or 30 years old and you're being told no, 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 no.
Yeah.
This is like you have to, you know, pull back the blinds and see what's really there. And I think a lot of people are too afraid to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Stacey, do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to talk about, or any other pieces of work in your studio that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I guess I just started a couple of new pieces. And it is sketching. It's really silly, but it's kind of just this kind of daily sketch thing of a nest that I had found in my backyard.
I think I saw that on Instagram.
Yes. So these are a couple of the new pieces.
Nice. And what is
And
the
by
motivation?
the way, there's my source photo for my
your sea mimes.
For my sea mimes. There's a couple back there. And there is the nest itself.
So what is the motivation for your daily sketches for the nest?
Well, they're actually kind of a therapeutic thing for me to work out some anger. And I am looking forward to doing a rather large painting because I don't think I found the slashing motion that I want from it yet.
Mm. So it's going to be larger in scale at some point.
Yes.
Nice.
These are all basically sketches.
Ah, so you're so good. I don't do that. I just like make the thing and I'm done with it. I'd probably be a better artist if I sketched. So, yeah, this has been a great talk. I'd like to share with you, all of our viewers watching, that Thoughts and Prayers, Another Round of Vacant Stares is on view through September 19th. Please check out the gallery at Shishama Madawan in New Jersey. You can schedule an appointment through arthustle.net. And you can also check out the virtual gallery on our website as well if you can't make it to the physical location. I know not everyone is ready to get out there in the world just yet. We have over 29 artists, including Stacey. We are working with Moms Demand Action, Gays Against Guns, and Unload. And yeah, that's about it. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.